Hi. Thank
Hi.
you so much for participating in the Lily Mae Francis Foundation's interview on depression. I'm going to start by introducing myself. I am Lynn Collins Mae, co-founder of the Lily Mae Francis Foundation. And can you introduce yourself?
Hi, my name is Julia. I'm 15 and I'm from the state of Georgia.
Okay. 15. Wow. So you're going to be my first teenage interview. So thank you so much for agreeing to participate with us today. All right. So if you don't mind, we're going to just get right started with the questions. Okay. All right. First question is, what is your definition of depression?
My definition of depression is like when you feel like, just so sad and just stuck and, you just have such everything's just 10 times like harder for you to do because you're in that stuck and sad place. Yeah, being, just mentally, just checked out.
Okay. All right. And do you think that most people experience depression from time to time?
I definitely think most people experience depression from time to time. I mean, it can happen, from just, losing a family member, losing a job, losing just anything or just anything. It can trigger it. Yeah.
Okay. And so that's an interesting response coming from a 15-year-old, right? So do you think that it's depression is prevalent in teenagers?
I think so as well because you would be surprised, especially during quarantine, how depression hit teens. We weren't having any type of social interactions in person, and we were, stuck in our rooms basically. So yeah, it gets pretty depressing.
Okay. Do you experience depression? And if so, how do you cope?
I do experience depression. I mean, I was just diagnosed though, like in January, even though I've been going through depression for a pretty long time. I cope by, well, first listening to music. I love music that makes me feel better. I talk to my mom about things. I have a therapist
Mhm.
that I've had since 2020 because during that time it was really hard. So I cope by, talking my feelings out and, um, and also, oh my gosh, taking care of myself, putting myself first. That makes me feel just so much better.
Okay. Do you think enough attention and focus is given to mental illness and why?
I don't think so at all, especially in the Black community. Um, I think that mental health has just been like gotten taken seriously as of recently, because of course people were like, oh, if you have this or that, you're crazy, or it's not something that you speak about too, or you were speaking about too much as from an older generation. So I think now though it's being talked about and everything is now being a little bit more normalized.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to another question because you
Mhm.
touched on something that I was going to ask you. So why do you think there's such a stigma attached to depression or mental health in our community?
Well, there's so much trauma based in our community. I mean, most trauma as well, I feel like it's hereditary.
Mhm.
You can get that. I mean, it doesn't even mean something happened to you. It means something that happened in your bloodline, and that trauma, links on to you. But I also think, we've been hurt so many times, and now that hurt translates into our children and this and that. And it just, that hurt just continues from generation to generation. And now I feel like our generation is like going to bring a stop to, or someone's generation, because, we realize that this trauma is nowhere for anybody to live.
So generational trauma then, thinking that because I made, let's say me specifically, I
Mhm.
did not get the attention or help for my mental illness, then, some of the things that I learned or, felt, I put on to my children, let's say. So do you mean that in that way?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. If you had a friend or a loved one experiencing depression or signs of mental illness, what advice would you give?
I would definitely tell them to go get therapy, but I know therapy isn't, to everybody's access. So I would definitely ask them to, talk to me even, ask somebody if you can talk to them, someone where you won't get judged, and just a listening ear, I would say.
So you mentioned that therapy wasn't accessible to everyone. Why is that?
Right.
Why do you think that?
Because I mean, insurance based. I mean, my mom spends like 100 some odd dollars every session that I have, and insurance basically covers it. But not everybody has insurance, and you can't pay, I mean, 100 some odd dollars a session is, pretty, expensive. So I understand that everybody can't get it, even though they should, they really should. I wish there was something that they could do where,
So,
everybody
so
could use
then that sounds like maybe the government should put some more funding towards it, right?
it.
Or make
100%.
it more available in terms of active in your healthcare or non-healthcare, right?
Exactly, 100%. I believe in that 100%.
Okay. Do you know where to find resources if someone is having a mental health crisis?
So, I mean, people call 911, but, because I don't know how to handle people when they're in that state. Now, I can handle you when are, in your mind and, you're talking to me like you're pouring out your feelings. But it's harder for me when you're not in your right mind and you're going through, like, I can't calm you down the way you need to be calmed down. So I would call a professional for sure. So they can at least, if they can give me guidance or send somebody out to help.
So most people mention 911, right? Because that's all we have. That's all we know, right? Something's
That's
going
all we
on,
know.
911, right? And so I think that the same way in which, and I don't even know how I learned of 911, no clue, right? So the same way it was socialized, however that was, the same way that a number for mental health crisis, which I've just recently learned is 988, right?
Oh, okay.
And that should be socialized, right? I think that,
Definitely.
but that particular number is specific to suicide hotline, right?
Right.
So obviously, everybody that's having a mental health crisis is not necessarily suicidal, right?
Correct.
So I
Mhm.
think that it would benefit us to have a number that is specific to I'm having a mental health crisis of whatever sort. I need somebody to talk to,
Right.
an anxiety attack. That doesn't
Right.
necessarily mean that I need to be calling the suicide hotline or 911
Yeah.
for that matter, right?
Right.
So I think that it would benefit us to have a number that was more socialized to the public.
Definitely.
Okay. This is the last question too. How do
Mhm.
you think we can start having regular conversations as it pertains to mental health in general?
I think we should, I think we should have like a just an open discussion with family or just anybody that's done wrong by you, but mostly family, and how, what's going on with you? How have you been? Just checking in on people just in general, because that's, could be the start. But I think that we should just have open discussions about it and, try our best to, communicate.
So how does that look, right? So you said with family, right? So explain to me how you believe that that can be incorporated in, some type of family setting.
I think that again, especially for Black people in trauma and the trauma based thing and how therapy isn't normalized, mental health is, I think that we can have an open discussion and people realize, oh my gosh, that's what's going on within myself.
Mm,
Oh my gosh, like, okay, maybe I'm not crazy. You know, I think that that would be the start.
mhm. Okay. All right. Julia, I have truly enjoyed this interview with you. I think that just getting the taste of what teenagers think about is important because, as a parent myself, I don't even, we really don't think about teenagers'
At
mental health.
all.
We don't think about them being depressed. We think
Right.
you got it made, right? And
Right.
it's clear that those conversations should begin, and starting at home sounds like a good idea. So I
Right.
appreciate your feedback today, Julia, for this interview, and I hope to be able to circle back with you for any further future interviews that we may have, if that's okay.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining today, Julia. You have a
You're
great day.
welcome. You do too.